So we really have an audience from all over the world, in general, in all our webinars, in particular in this one. So I think we can begin. So I would like to, can you hear me? Yeah. So I would like to welcome everybody to our webinar. And this is Hebrew University's Friends webinar. And I would like also to tell you that our webinar, it will be around half an hour lecture, and then we'll open to question and answers. And you have the possibility to raise your digital hand, and I will open your microphone, or to write your question to the chat. So we are open to all the questions that you have. And now I'm happy to share that today, one of Hebrew University's close friends from Winnipeg, Canada, and president of the Winnipeg chapter of the Canadian Friends of the Hebrew University, Margaret Chuckett, will introduce Dr. Aliza Stark. Margaret, as an educator, is committed to the Hebrew University's mission to create an educational environment of excellence that encourages students and professors to attain top achievement in today's world. Margaret and her husband, the past president of the Winnipeg chapter of Canadian Friends, are generous supporters of the university, focusing on Hebrew University outreach programs that support students attending public schools in struggling neighborhoods in Israel. They have two daughters, Nicole and Kara, who both attended the Rothberg International School. And Margaret, would you please kick off our much anticipated webinar?
Yes, it's a pleasure. 55 years ago, I saw a photo in the Shuckett home of the founding fathers of the Hebrew University, and our family's connection to the university began. As Mara said, my husband first became president of Winnipeg Friends, and I followed. Our girls attended Rothberg, and coincidentally, and appropriate for today's webinar, our daughter worked in a lab in the Department of Food Sciences in the 80s and subsequently became a dietitian. The Rehovot campus has provided Paul and I with wonderful memories and experiences. Paul, an ophthalmologist, once assisted in eye surgery of a horse in the School of Veterinary Medicine. We formed a wonderful friendship with Zohar Karam and admire his work in olive oil and creating the Master of Science program in viticulture and enology, the first winemaking degree in Israel. We witness the pride the Ethiopians have in cultivating the fields the university has made available to them. Hebrew University is like our second home, and we certainly miss this year's trips. We took our last flight, returning home from a month-long stay in Israel on March the 9th, before the world shut down. The webinars keep us in touch with the incredible accomplishments ongoing in all four campuses of Hebrew University, and we're so proud of its phenomenal place in the world of education and research. It's an honor to be able to introduce Dr. Elisa Stark to you. She has her finger on the pulse of what so many people are trying to achieve. Eat nutritionally to achieve the best you can with yourself. A tremendous task with so many stuck at home and close to the refrigerator, as well as the horrific loss of income that affects families' nutritional purchasing power. Dr. Stark is a lecturer in the School of Nutritional Sciences and has been teaching in the program for over 20 years. She's an expert in food science and food preparation, with an emphasis on improving the nutritional and therapeutic value of foods. Her research projects focus on nutrition education and health promotion to improve dietary habits in Israel. Projects include planning, executing, and evaluating interventions to promote better eating habits in Israeli school children, along with motivating parents to provide healthier foods at home. Dr. Stark has also worked in several projects in the Israeli Army. She's carried out surveys to assess dietary intake of combat soldiers and pilots, and teaches soldiers to make informed food choices in order to improve performance and develop eating habits to promote lifelong health. Working with colleagues and students from the School of Nutritional Sciences in collaboration with the municipality of Rehovot, Dr. Stark has established a nutritional health education reach-out program in predominantly Ethiopian neighborhoods. A recent partnership with the School of Social Work and Ashalim Joint Israel has led to the development of a program that uses nutrition education as a platform to improve family functioning in underprivileged communities. Dr. Stark serves as co-chair for the International Division of the Society of Nutrition Education and co-director of academics for the International Master of Science Nutrition Program in English. I'm looking forward to her talk as I could use few tweaks with my nutritional habits. Join me in welcoming Dr. Stark.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and let's hope that the technology works when I try and share my PowerPoint here. 1 second. Okay, here we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, let's, okay.
So Aliza, I will disappear, but of course I will stay there to listen your interesting lecture, and I will appear again with the question and answer.
Okay, because all I see is the three panelists. I don't even see the audience at all, but that's okay.
That's okay.
They're with us, and I'm sure that they can ask questions in chat, and then at the end we'll field questions, and then I'll be able at least to see the names of who's here. Okay, wonderful. The introduction was very comprehensive. I work in the School of Nutritional Sciences and at the International School of Agricultural Sciences, and I've been doing that for quite a while. Today I'm going to present actually work from research and projects that we are doing in Africa that relate to sustainable solutions for nutritional issues. We are in Rehovot at the Faculty of Agriculture, and as was mentioned, Hebrew University has 4 campuses. 3 of them are in Jerusalem, but the real gem is in Rehovot, where we are, and we're the only agricultural school in Israel, and we have a vision, feeding the world through sustainable agriculture, and that's a very ambitious vision. And I see that, and I said, well, you know, I'm not an agronomist, I'm a nutritionist, but when we look at this vision, certainly when we're talking about feeding the world, it's not enough to just have sufficient food supply. It's important to provide healthy foods. So sustainable agriculture that will grow healthy foods, and nutrition education, that people can make wise choices from what's available to them wherever they are in the world. A few weeks ago, one of my colleagues came back from Dr. Anna Aronis. I'm sure some of you know her. She came back from a sabbatical at the WHO in Denmark. And of course, they're very occupied with Corona. And one of the things that she said, and this of course was relating to Corona, is that none of us is safe until all of us are safe. And first of all, that rung very true to me, but it also hit home as a nutritionist when we're talking about food security and hunger and malnutrition, that all of us have a responsibility, those of us in the nutrition world, to work hard to get to a point that there is no child, no pregnant mother, no adult, nobody in the world that does not have enough food and not enough nutritious food. And I'm pretty passionate about my work in trying to fight food insecurity around the globe. And this was born of I would say, childhood and teen years that are very impressionable years in a Zionist youth movement. I was part of Young Judea. And one of the things that we talked about a lot is what we call tikkun olam, that we are all responsible for everybody in the world. And some people say, okay, I'm going to be a vegan, and that lowers my carbon imprint, and I'm going to help with climate change. Other people make contributions to food programs, but I'm very lucky because I'm able to practice my tikkun olam, which I think is very important for everybody in the nutrition world, through programs that we have in our international school. 16 years ago, Miri Ben Chaim, at the time it was the Division of External Studies, along with Professor Ram Reifin, who at the time was head of the School of Nutrition, decided to establish a master's program in Nutritional Sciences with the majority of students coming from the developing world. And so September 2020, our 8th graduating class presented their research exercises and are moving into their 2nd year of research studies. Currently, I run the program, the academic program, with Professor Betty Schwartz, who has been my partner for many years. She's standing next to me here in the photograph, and you can see from the many different countries. The original program was a 1-year master's program, non-research thesis. The students did a lot of coursework, did a research exercise, and returned home. At some point, there was a demand for a 2nd year of research, so laboratory opportunities opened up on our campus at the Volcani Institute that is nearby. And that was wonderful, except about half our students are nutritionists or community health workers. And if you don't know Hebrew and you want to do research or development in those areas, you really can't do it in Israel. So we looked for a solution, and we spoke with some of our funders, the Pears Foundation in UK, who has been very wonderful in helping us have these international programs. And we said we would like to do a 2nd year pilot program so the students can go home to their home countries and do research there with supervision from Israel and then a local supervisor at one of the universities in their home country, and then come back at the end of the year of work and defend the thesis in Rehovot. And so that program started in 2014. We've had 3 different groups of students do work in their home country. I also want to take a minute here in this picture. You can see some of our instructors, Zipporah Gershon, Rebecca Goldsmith, Vered Malom, who have been with our program almost since its conception. And I say this is my work, but of course it's never my work. It is our work. And I couldn't have done any of this program without a combined effort of the administrators in the international school, and of course my colleagues that have year after year been willing to put in time and teach and mentor students in our international program. My student, and she might even be here this evening, I just don't see the list, so if she's here, welcome. This is our student from Nigeria, who was my first student that went back to Nigeria to do a 2nd year research project for her degree. And as you can see, she has one of those amazing Nigerian names. In the first week of orientation, we said, please give us a name that's a little bit easier for us. So Yinka joined us, and she had to identify a collaborator in Nigeria that would work with us for the 2nd year research project. So again, wonderful Nigerian names. Dr. Onabanjo, it took me a while to master that one. He was our collaborator at the Federal University of Agriculture, which is where Yinka had done her undergraduate work in food science. Just 2 words about Nigeria for those of us that don't remember exactly where it is. It's in Western Africa, and where the star is about where the university is. It's the country with the largest population in Africa, with 200 million people. Many nutritional challenges. Rachel, I see you raised your hand, but we're not taking questions till the end right now. And I don't know how to take it down, so we'll just leave it.
Aliza, sorry, yeah, people can raise their hand, and then when we when we open the question section, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
So you can raise your digital hand, and then we will open the microphones.
Okay. Now, Nigeria is a country with a lot of political unrest. And we know that in areas of political unrest leads to a lot of nutritional issues, especially in the developing world, but not only. And one of the big problems is vitamin A deficiency. Vitamin A deficiency is a leading cause of preventable childhood blindness, but it's also a big factor in immune function. So if you're vitamin A deficient, even something as a mild case of diarrhea, you might actually die from it. It becomes fatal because you have impaired immune response. Vitamin A is critical for normal functioning of the GI tract. So it's very important that we provide vitamin A as much as we can, especially to infants and children who are growing and developing. When we look at the data from Nigeria, it's not particularly encouraging. And this is the most recent data I could find, that about 20% of preschool children are vitamin A deficient. That's very worrisome. That's a very high number. And there definitely are programs already on the ground in Nigeria to try and combat vitamin A deficiency. There's supplementation programs. And certainly in the southern part of Africa, Nigeria, which is wealthier and less political unrest, they do a pretty good job. But in the northern areas, there's a much bigger problem. And last year, an article came out talking about how inequitable the supplementation program was, because it reaches the areas that are easy to reach and much more challenging to get to certain portions of Nigeria that are having political challenges. So with our collaborators, we thought that it would be very important to work on infant feeding foods. We call them weaning foods. When women, after 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, you begin giving weaning foods, which are usually cereals, until children can eat solid foods. So we were interested in developing an infant weaning food that would be rich in vitamin A, certainly iron and zinc, other nutrients that are critical. So when you look, and also sustainable, okay, we're talking about sustainability. We want things that are locally grown. Cassava is locally grown in Africa. And if you're not so familiar with cassava, there's a nice picture here, but most of us have enjoyed tapioca pudding, and tapioca is a starch isolation from cassava. So that's one option. It's grown widely in Nigeria. And you have other foods that are readily available in Nigeria. Potatoes, rice, this is semolina from wheat, white corn, but none of them have a large amount of vitamin A, or if at all. Some have almost zero. And we don't really talk about vitamin A, we talk about precursors or provitamin A, because from plant sources, we don't get a lot of retinoic acid, which is the active form of vitamin A. You get that mostly from animal sources. But from plant sources, we get all these wonderful carotenoids. This orange pigment, yellow to orange pigment, when we absorb it, our body in the liver or in the intestinal lining can convert it into active retinoic acid, vitamin A. So it seems pretty simple to make something sustainable. Instead of giving cassava or a white potato, we should choose some food that is familiar to the local population that contains carotenoids. Now, I want to tell a little anecdote. I've been doing nutrition education for many years. And about 18 years ago, give or take a couple years, I was involved, and I'm involved with nutrition education in the new immigrants who are not so new immigrants anymore from Ethiopia. And we had arranged a wonderful talk, and they came and they saw a movie in Amharic. We thought they were about diabetes, because there's a lot of diabetes in the Ethiopian community. We thought we were very culturally sensitive. We'd shown this, and we had someone translating for us. And at the end of the meeting, we decided to give some refreshments. So we handed out tangerines. This was in the winter in Israel, and tangerines are very plentiful and relatively inexpensive. And we handed out persimmons, which are also locally grown, and very healthy. So we handed out to every woman that participated, and we thanked them, and they left the lecture hall, and we went back in to clean up. under almost every single seat, the women had left their persimmons. They took the tangerines because they were familiar with the tangerines, but this was a fruit they'd never tasted, never seen. And this certainly is a lessons learned about how to introduce new foods to populations that have never eaten them before. And that only comes from experience with things like that. And of course, in the future, we changed how we introduce new foods. But in Nigeria, what was chosen for our weaning food was a food that is grown in Nigeria. People are familiar with it, and that is sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes, because of their wonderful orange color, have lots of this provitamin A. This particular sweet potato won a World Food Prize in 2016, and it's biofortified. That means it's not GMO. Biofortification is really what we call traditional crossbreeding of plants so that we can get a maximum amount of a certain vitamin. And here it's provitamin A, carotenoids. So this was done through crossbreeding, and it's not GMO. And we all know that GMO is very controversial. This webinar is sponsored by the European Friends of Hebrew University, and the Europeans are very, I would say, anti-GMO. In America, much more accepting. In America, certainly there are people that are less accepting of GMO, but almost all the soybeans and all the corn grown in the US today are GMO. And these controversies are equally hot in Africa. So it was important to choose food that was biofortified and not GMO, which just avoided that whole issue of if there will be high acceptability. There are even countries in Africa that refused food aid from the US because it was GMO food. So they're hungry, but they don't want to feed their people GMO food. So we can argue about GMO in a different webinar, but biofortification means that it is not GMO, it's done through traditional crossbreeding. So this is our orange flesh sweet potato, and you can see Yinka, she obtained these sweet potatoes at the local market. She sliced them up, cleaned them. We sliced them to get a better surface area so that the drying process, you see the next picture, she's drying the sweet potatoes, and we have the dried slices. We eventually ground them up for the cereal, and we store them in dark bags. Provitamin A carotenoids are very light sensitive and heat sensitive. So we have to store them properly so that we retain the provitamin A in our final product. The protein was provided by soy. Again, Nigeria is the #1 producer of soy in Africa. About 50% of overall soy to Africa is imported, but Nigeria does produce, so we're looking at another sustainable solution that can be grown locally and affordable. We talk about sustainability, these are all factors that we have to look at. Affordable, locally grown, and of course, do limited or no damage to the environment so that for future generations, we will still be able to produce soy. So soybeans were provided, and there's also been some controversy about the protein quality in soy. But today we know without any second thoughts that soybeans provide all the 9 essential amino acids, and it is a wonderful protein source, and less expensive than, say, casein from milk or albumin from eggs, and certainly is sufficient for optimal growth and development for our Nigerian children. The last thing we added in was some carrots. Okay, again, locally grown, sustainable, and cleaned, dried, ground up into this beautiful, the minute you see orange color, you know there's lots of provitamin A. So that was the 3 ingredients that were used for the formulation of this weaning food. And what you can do is put in a computer program the content of your ingredients, and it will tell you what proportions you should put them in order to get a formulation that meets standards. And when we talk about standards of infant formulas, this is standard for processed cereal-based foods for infants. There is something called Codex, which is out of the FAO, WHO, that we need to meet those standards. So that was our standard, and our control was Cerelac, which is produced by Nestle, which is a commercial food, which obviously is much less sustainable and it's expensive. So we wanted to be sure that whatever we created was equally good as the commercial product and met the standards. So when we did the analysis of our different formulations, you can see that certainly there was sufficient protein, which is critical. And this is, of course, of the dried cereal, the dried formula, that our own formulation. And when we look at the vitamin A, and this is in retinol equivalence, which means that there's a factor that we take carotenoids and convert them to how much retinoic acid they will give us, we see about 5 times more potential for vitamin A from our cereals. So again, there was a little bit less calcium because they used casein as a source, but obviously if mothers reconstitute with milk, if they can afford that, that would certainly increase the calcium. That's here down at the bottom. But our calcium met the codex requirements for infant cereals. The last thing we wanted to do was look at acceptability, and we wanted to see if people would, mothers, would like this formulation. And ideally, maybe you would give it to infants and see if they smile or they spit it out, but that's very subjective. So we asked young mothers to actually taste the different cereals. And what you have here is the samples reconstituted with water, reconstituted with milk, and the Cerelac. And we did a very good job. It wasn't quite as good as a commercial formula, but the commercial formula has a lot of added sugar. So when you look at taste, when you add a lot of sugar to your formula, which of course we don't want for infants, you get a little bit better scores. But overall, our acceptance scores, and this is just for color, taste, these are very standard ways that we evaluate different foods. And it looks something like this, an orange cereal, which is very different from the white semolina-based cereals that we get. But we got good scores, and very recently, actually, we had our paper published in Scientific African. Inga was in our first group, but in the meantime, she got married, has a daughter, and is doing a PhD in South Africa. And so it took a little time for us to get her publication out, but certainly very important for her professional future and for capacity building, the whole process of publication in academic journals. The second project I want to present is a project that we've completed recently. This is a class of 2017-2019. And I put all the countries just so you can get a feel of when I walk into the classroom or any of the instructors, how excited we are to have a student body that is so diverse and for so many places. Here's Vered, one of our instructors. I'm not sure that everyone knows where Swaziland is. Eswatini, they went and changed all the names in Africa. We have to relearn from when I was in 7th grade 50 years ago, all the different names of the countries. But Swaziland is a kingdom surrounded by South Africa. I'll show you on the map in a minute. But Ecuador, El Salvador, Rwanda. And my student from this class is from Malawi. That's Alex Gatola, who graduated in December 2019, right before Corona. And now we're working on publishing his work. That's where Malawi is. It's on the other side of Africa. It's landlocked. Here you have Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, and Malawi in the middle. And down here we have Swaziland. For those of you that were worried about where Swaziland is, here it is. It has about 1 million people, but it does have diplomatic relations with Israel. And so we've had a lot of students from Swaziland. But right now, let me focus on Malawi. Malawi is much smaller than Nigeria, only 18 million people. It's also, the World Bank considers it one of the poorest countries in the world. Life expectancy today is 64 years. 20 years ago, it was 45. And the big jump in life expectancy, I think we can give to Bill Gates, who gives antiviral drugs for anyone who wants them for free in Africa. So those that are working on Tikkun Olam, Bill Gates definitely is a big contributor to making the world a healthier place. And we see big changes in countries like Malawi. Unfortunately, there is a lot of acute malnutrition and chronic malnutrition in Malawi. They do have a big vitamin A supplementation program, but they're fortifying oil and sugar, which are products that we actually would like people to eat a little bit less of. So we definitely want to look for a sustainable solution for Malawi. And Alex found a partner, a collaborator in Malawi, Mangani Katundu, who is just an amazing guy. He spent 3 days in a Jeep with me and we're still friends. And he started a project which we joined. Remember, this is a one-year project for our students, so we usually join existing projects. And he is reintroducing landrace orange maize in Malawi. In Malawi, people eat white corn, white maize. That's what's been accepted. That's what they grow. And they eat this very thick porridge called enzima. And obviously it's white, or very little precursor for vitamin A. So Mangani had a very simple, sustainable food conversion that he thought would be easy to implement to fight vitamin A deficiency. And landrace orange maize, of course, I'm not an agronomist, so I had to learn about orange maize too. Landrace means that it's a crop that has been grown for many generations in country, or that's been adapted to the local climate, water supply, etc. Gives reasonably good yields. And so he chose this orange maize to try and reintroduce to people instead of white maize. So we have biofortified crops like the sweet potato, certainly GMO technology, which again, controversial. Maybe I'll be invited back to talk about my opinion about GMO, but this is landrace. So once again, no issues of acceptability. This is the kind of corn that's been grown in Malawi for years and years. And that's what it looks like, of this nice dark orange color. And the Pro Farmer project was created by Mangani. He got funding, and what they did initially was give farmers 5 kilograms of free orange maize. And at the end of the season, they asked the farmers to give them back 10 kilograms of seeds. So they thought they'd get a couple hundred farmers growing the orange maize. And I know that now there's somewhere around 2,000 farmers in Malawi growing the orange maize. So what Alex wanted to do, and I'm go over this, we'll touch on most of the things, was one, to see if this orange maize, when it's stored in a farm, in a home condition, harvest is in May. I was there in February. And so the orange maize had been in storage, home storage, for 10 months. How much of the carotenoids that we know are light sensitive and heat sensitive actually were retained after storage, and then of course cooking. We want to see if the kids, we looked at kids, but really how acceptable the different foods would be to children, and if they would eat the orange maize. Then we also did a second project where we spoke with women, over 300 women, to see what they knew about the orange maize, how they felt about growing it, and if they actually ate it. Okay, so that's behaviors. And when we do any kind of evaluation in nutrition education, we need to know what people know, what they believe, and if they actually carry out the behavior. So that's a very standard way of evaluating a program. We also wanted to see what the women were eating. If already there and interviewing them, we were very curious to know about their diet. It's very hard to do a traditional 24-hour recall, especially because it's very hard for people to say how much they ate of things. So there's something called a diet diversity score, which has been developed, which is a proxy for sufficiency. So if you eat a diverse diet, there's a very good chance that you're getting all the nutrients you need, like eating a colorful plate. If you eat more than 5 food groups a day, you're probably getting all the nutrients you need. Okay, so here's the location in Malawi, and we worked in Deza and Chulo were the 2 areas that I actually went with the team to see the tasting. In Zumba is where the University Chancellor and the University of Malawi Chancellor College is located, and I stayed in Blantyre. Now, I would tell you this, I'm a little bit spoiled, and it was very challenging for me to go to Malawi by myself. it was way out of my comfort zone. I'd never been to a developing country, and I'm very glad that I did. I took Ethiopian Airlines, and that was an experience within itself. If people want to know about flying Ethiopian, how that went, I'll tell you. But I was greeted by Alex, my student, and Mangani, who were the amazing hosts this whole time for my site visit for the project. And Malawi is known as the warm heart of Africa. And I can definitely say that it was a wonderful experience with wonderful people to work with. And here's a picture now. Malawi is very green. Here actually you see a lot of trees, but most of Malawi has been deforested for farming purposes and using wood for heating homes. This is a school, or actually I think it's a church, where we did our taste testing. You see no electricity, no running water, very simple conditions in rural Malawi. And the local women prepare different porridges with white maize and orange maize. So there were 6 different things that the children tested. Because it's research, we had to get informed consent. And obviously if they couldn't read or write, if the literacy level was low, we got oral consent that their children could participate in our program. And here's a few pictures of the children tasting the white maize products and the orange maize products. So here's Alex. And you can also see the conditions. This is in a schoolroom in rural Malawi. Again, no electricity. The only light coming in is through the windows. And so both of them were having the children taste and giving scores on a very simple scale. These are school-age children, but the smiley faces made it much easier than to try and give a numerical score. And some of our results, they liked the orange corn. Okay, this was for taste. And you can see the 2 different regions, Deza and Chulo. The old farmers are farmers that have been in Pro Farmer. This are the children of old farmers that have been in the program for 3 years. And the new farmers are children that their parents, it's the first year that they are growing the crop. But across the board, the children like the dark bars are the orange maize. They liked it as well or better than the white maize products. One of our internal validations is when we looked at the plain porridge and then we have sugar porridge, they like the sugar porridge more. They got a higher score. So that's sort of internal validation that the children understood the instructions. Everything is done in Chichewa, and they were explained, and they were able to evaluate the taste testing, and they liked the orange maize. And here I am with some of the women that cooked the orange maize porridge for us in one of the sites that I visited. Alex did the second portion of his research work was to see how much carotenoids were retained. And here you see HPLC equipment that's in the University of Malawi. You see the samples, some are orange, some are white maize. And I'm only going to bring a taste of the results, but what you see here, and this is flour and this is cereal. That is made from corn that has been stored for 10 months. And we can see that the orange maize in both of the samples has a reasonable amount of retention of carotenoids after 10 months of storage. We know that immediately after harvest, there's a lot more. And of course, the white maize has very little. So that was encouraging that even after storage in relatively poor conditions, there was retention of the beta carotene, well, beta carotene not so much, but of the carotenoids that are present there. The last thing I want to talk about is this survey that was performed in women of these farming families in Malawi. We had 336 women interviewed, again, from the 2 different districts, from families that have been growing orange maize for a while and those that were new to growing orange maize. And we looked at the attitudes. They were very positive. Orange maize is a good food. Orange maize is good for children. And the more negative things, that sometimes orange maize is associated with food aid and relief. But that didn't seem to be a problem with these women. There was a very high acceptability and a belief that this was a good product. What was very interesting is when we asked the women, what about the orange maize was advantageous, they gave a lot of answers, but almost none of them could tell us that it contained vitamin A or provitamin A. Only 32% answered yes. It was a yes/no question, and don't know if there was vitamin A in orange maize. When we asked them if they ate products using orange maize, overall, yes. So we see that knowledge, not so good. Attitudes and behavior, very good. And as far as diet diversity, I know I need to wrap up, but we asked about the 10 different food groups of foods that are commonly eaten in Malawi. And they had to say what they ate during the day, and then we gave them a score. And there are lots of fruits and vegetables, et cetera, that we want to see for diversity and getting enough nutrients. And when we looked at the data, and it didn't matter really where the women were and which district, these are rural districts in Malawi, very few of them actually ate more than 5 or more different food groups in a day, which means that we need to be very careful because these women are in danger of not necessarily calorie deficiency, but of certain micronutrient deficiencies, that they don't eat a diverse enough diet. They eat a lot of corn, and then we need to encourage them to eat a more diverse diet. And these are some of the pictures I took in Malawi, and it's not that there's not fruit and vegetables available. I think the big barrier is that they are expensive. So that, and Alex can correct me if that's incorrect, but the food is available, you just have to be able to afford it. So when you're living on a very limited budget, as many of these rural farmers are, they often grow fruits and vegetables and sell them, but don't actually eat them in their families. So the diversity was very low, and that was not a good thing, and means that there's still work to be done as far as improving nutrition in Malawi. So the Pro Farmer Project shows 100% that we can use sustainable options for increasing provitamin A and carotenoids. We saw that the foods were highly accepted, highly palatable, and that a reasonably good rates of retention of carotenoids over time, and certainly close to harvest, there's a lot more carotenoids. So again, some of the maize is eaten after harvest from May, June, July, and not all of it was in storage for such a long time. We did realize that there's low levels of understanding of the nutritional advantages. Some of the things that were stated, there was when they joined the Pro Farmer Project, there was training. But the women we interviewed might not be the ones that actually went to the training. It could have been their husbands. And that information about the nutritional value of the orange maize might not have been passed on, or they forgot. It's not necessarily you're worried about growing this stuff for your family. And it might not have been something that was emphasized enough that they really understood why it's so important to eat foods that contain carotenoids. And of course, the low diet diversity scores are worrisome. And I have other projects we've done. Those are the 2 I presented today. So maybe I'll have an opportunity at a later date to present some of our work from Kenya and Uganda. But again, this is all work through the International School of Agricultural Sciences at the Faculty of Agriculture in Rehovot. Our knowledge, your growth is our motto. And also special thanks to the Pears Foundation, who has supported the program. And there are other supporters. It's not just Pears, but the second year Research at Home. This is our graduating class of 2020. Most of them, there's some here are from animal sciences, but most of them are from nutrition. And a lot of them, a good portion of them, are continuing on for a second year. Unfortunately, because of Corona, we are not doing home projects in their home countries, but hopefully the next graduating class will have an opportunity to go back home and do some of this work that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the work our students have done, and it just gives me a lot of satisfaction and joy to be able to be part of these programs. So I'm going to stop here and turn the webinar over to
Thank you so
Mara.
much, Aliza, to this so interesting explanation of what's going on. So now we can open to the question. We have one question from Patricia Ugekbu. Patricia, I opened your microphone. You can speak. Maybe you have to open it too. Patricia?
Yeah, her microphone is muted. I see that it's muted.
Yeah, you should open it. So let's go to the chat. Benna Brodsky, she's asking to define food groups and give example of 5 or more food groups.
Okay, I could go back to the it's too complicated to do share of the screen. Also, if Alex is here, can you see Alex? Is he here this evening? Patolo?
Yeah.
Patolo? Please put him up on the panel because this is his work. And if we could even see him, it would be great. This is, he joined us in presenting his work. And when we're talking about food groups, they're defined by different areas, but we're looking at fruits, vegetables. Here they've been divided into even subgroups, sources of proteins, grains and cereals, oils, and so forth. So we want to be sure that people are getting a diverse group. Alex, can we hear you?
I think he can open his camera. Alex? I can see him. Alex, you are available to open your camera if you want.
Or at least we can hear you. Can you?
Alex?
Again, he's in Malawi. Oh, here he is, straight from Malawi, joining us. Here we are. There he is.
Hello, Alex. Nice to
meet you. Alumna. He's not even a student anymore. I can't call him. He's a graduate. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
You want to share one more time about the different food groups that were chosen for the dietary diversity? You're the one that did the interviewing, so.
All right. Actually, in Malawi, we have a set of food groups that we follow to achieve our sufficient dietary diversity. That is to say, we follow the 6 food groups, and these food groups are categorized in, we have staples, we have the vegetables, we have fruits, we have those that come from meat and meat products, we have those that come from the fats. So we thought it would be necessary, much as we are following these 6 food groups, but we wanted to use a tool which is standardized. So we used a tool which is developed by FAO. It is MDDW. This is the dietary diversity for pregnant of childbearing age. And this tool actually recommends that a childbearing age woman has to consume more than 5 food groups. So it wasn't hard for us to contextualize the tool because we were already above the scale that they were looking for. So as I said, we use the products. Some of the products that we used were the ones that Aliza has shown. And these products were the locally available products that are really found in the rural areas, not the ones that are found.
Malawi.
Yes.
But also it's important to say that we do our best to use standardized questionnaires, standardized tools that have been validated. And this is definitely, because it's almost impossible to get accurate dietary data. It's difficult in university-educated Americans, Israelis to get good data. So of course, for women with limited education, it's virtually impossible to get it down to the grams of fat. And so we use a tool that's much more appropriate for rural areas.
So we have now a question in the chat for you, for maybe both of you. Is further work being done with the Weaning Food in Nigeria so people can use it?
Yeah, I don't know if Yinka is here. She said she would try and come, but what I asked her this question also. And first of all, we just published the data. So anybody, it's open to anybody who would like to decide to do maybe a micro business. The formulation is there that could use the evidence base that this is a good weaning food. Now, obviously, we didn't do growth and development testing on this weaning food. So but again, on any kind of cereal, it's not done. But it only was published recently in this past year. And so far, we haven't heard that someone is actually producing it for business purposes, but the potential is there. And the formulation is, available to anyone. That's academics. We don't look for patents. We look for spreading our knowledge to anybody who is interested. And so it's available to anybody, the specific formulation that was developed in her project.
Okay, and Rivka Geft is asking what type of food educational programs are available for the Ethiopian community in Israel.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, we did a lot of work with the Ethiopians when they were new immigrants. It's been 20 years since the big mass of immigrants came in Operation Shlomo, I think is the second one. And today they are integrated into Israeli society. They go to the schools. So they don't get anything. We work in specific neighborhoods, but the neighborhoods are integrated neighborhoods. And we work in other underprivileged populations today. But originally, I got my start in nutrition education and the first or the second wave of Aliyah from Ethiopia, or even the third wave, if it depends what you're counting, in the early 1990s. So we do work in some of the neighborhoods with kindergartners, with their parents, in the schools. But it's very different than it was 20 years ago. So.
Okay. And going back to Africa, Hannah Fritz, she's asking where the two programs in Africa accompanied by education for mothers or families in the field of nutrition, and if yes, how did it look like?
I don't know if this is talking about Malawi or...
I guess Malawi, but...
Malawi, because the other project was just developing the formula. Alex, you want to say a little bit about the training program in the Pro Farmer project?
Yeah, sure. As Dr. Aliza outlined, the project was started in 2014. So at the inception of the project, before everything was done, the farmers were provided, first of all, with the seeds, but before they planted the seeds, they were provided with the training. The training was covering a wide range of topics, and some of the topics included the benefits that the land-raised orange maize that they have been given has, which included the issue of the provitamin A, that the orange maize had the provitamin A. And this training was also provided to the other farmers that we refer to as new farmers in the presentation that Aliza was provided. And as shown during the presentation, it seemed some might have forgotten and some might not be even the ones that the ones that we interviewed for, because there's an issue of gender domination somehow in the African settings, whereby when there's something concerning maybe organization coming to the community, men are the ones that are in the forefront to attend. And when it's time to go to do the real farming, it's now the time for women to do the issue of farming. So it might happen that the people that we interviewed were the ones that actually attended the training, but the training was provided when the project was starting in 2014.
Alex, do you know what % of women were actually and we know that the women do most of the farming. Do you know how many, was it most of the men that were at the trainings, or is this before you joined the project?
This was before actually I joined the project, but just from the interactions that I had when I was correcting the information, the questionnaires, it seemed to be a lot of men actually who were the one that attended the training, not women, which is an issue, of course, because now that brings an issue, women are the one that are involved a lot in the food preparation and all that happens at home setting, but now the men, they are the ones in forefront getting the training, yet they are not providing any beneficial to the household.
Wow.
Well, that's another issue in Africa, that we need to empower women. And that's why also we're very pleased that a lot of African women participate in our master's program. So that's one step in the right direction for female empowerment.
A very interesting insight directly from Africa. So we have another question on orange maize. Can the orange maize flour be fortified further with millet and sorghum flour? I don't know what is sorghum, to enhance the micro countries, maybe? It's not clear to me which is the question. Maybe it's clear to you.
I'm assuming they're talking about combining different grains to make a better mix of nutrients. And yes, I don't know about acceptability, because one of the things is that there's a staple, porridge, and changing the color is one thing. Starting mixing it with other grains, and you start changing the taste. So definitely there's an option of mixing grains. I don't know how much that's done in Malawi. Some countries in Africa, most of Ethiopia, for example, the basic food is often a mixture of grains and legumes, but I'm not sure they do that so much in Malawi. Okay. Alex,
okay. First of all, this landrace orange maize, it's much as it has a different color, which is orange, but it is more like the same as white maize, which people are used to. And much as it has not been done to fortify it further, but this is an opportunity which can be looked into, and they see the opportunity. But as you have said, the issue of palatability will be a case to study further, because much as we saw a greater much of advocacy. Access?
No, sorry, we lost you for a few seconds. You can continue. Now internet is.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, thanks. So I was saying there's need of more of maybe community awareness, because now we're going to be bringing in an orange maize, which people are already not used to. Now, to put in another, let's say, staple, to fortify it with another staple, it will need more community awareness on why and how this crop that we're bringing to the community is important to them.
Okay.
I also think it emphasizes how problematic it is to change what people eat. And that's not just in Africa, that's everywhere. People are used to eating certain foods, and it's very, very hard to change eating behaviors. So it's a challenge everywhere. I think our persimmon, this is a perfect example that they were given a free fruit and they didn't even want to take it home and see what it was. So to get people to make new foods, and just the color issue, you would say, well, of course, that shouldn't be so difficult. It even tastes better. It gets better scores on taste, right, Alex? In other countries, we've seen results with orange maize that the acceptability and taste is better than with white maize. But that doesn't mean people are so willing to run after and start eating it. And I think we all know that when we want to try and diet or eat more healthy, it's not so easy for any of us. So, try giving up coffee or something like that, just small changes, and it's a challenge. So, and again, it doesn't mean that it can't happen, that you can't do mixtures and improvement, but it's a slow process. And even the success of the orange maize, I would also say a lot is due to Mangani, because he is this amazing charismatic leader that the villagers trust him. And so when he comes in and says, and he's been working in these areas for many, many years, and when he comes in and says, let's give this a try, people are willing to do it. And if Alex went in, who does not know the local population, they might not be so willing to adapt something new. So again, it depends on who's doing it and how you do it. And that's things that I've learned by my small experiences in Africa, but also from working in Israel with Ethiopian immigrants and in any population. Changes are difficult.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So we have a few minutes for a few more questions. You're welcome to raise your digital hand or to write your question. Here we have another one. Oh, sorry, I didn't see. So from Daji Stefan Serge Boni, I think you know him. Hi, Dr.
I do
Aliza.
indeed. He's from Cote d'Ivoire, another country that changed the name from Ivory Coast that I have to keep up with. And I learned that it was Ivory Coast, but it's not Ivory Coast for a long time, Cote d'Ivoire. Also did a PhD program, right, Daji, in China after he completed our program, our master's program.
Wow.
Success stories, definitely
Impressive.
success stories.
Very impressive. So his question is on cassava in Nigeria. You mentioned tapioca, a food made from cassava, but there is a lot of food made from cassava in West Africa. For example, gari, most known in Nigeria. Biofortification can be interesting for that type of food, gari. In Cote d'Ivoire, for example, we have atieke, which is made from cassava and exported in Europe and Francophone country. That one is, okay, that's it. So
the question is, what have they biofortified with the cassava with? I don't know. But again, biofortification is accepted everywhere in the world as GMO. We have the whole story of golden rice. I don't know if people are familiar with the story of putting in carotenoids into rice, so the rice is kind of golden. But it was very low acceptability, and Monsanto was making a lot of money off of the golden rice. So, and it's GMO. So golden rice, sort of, we don't talk about it anymore. But I think cassava that has undergone biofortification, also, these are directions that are very sustainable, highly acceptable, and that different agricultural institutions are trying to develop sustainable choices. And Cote d'Ivoire also has a lot of issues similar to Nigeria, Malawi, in nutrition issues. And Daji is doing a lot of great work in Cote d'Ivoire. So we're always very proud of him and his work.
Thank you, Elisa, and thank you to Daji also for being here with us today. So I don't see any other questions. Please, for the last time, raise your hand or write it if you have. Okay, we have another question that, again, I'm not sure to understand, but probably you will understand, Aliza. So Endale Amare Kifle, she or he is asking from Ethiopia. I missed some part of the presentation. Was the orange maize has improved beta-carotene content or other micro countries too? And then I'm asking the question because we have QPM. Do you know? No. Aliza, your microphone is turned off.
Yes, my dog is barking, so I turned off my microphone. So the question was if the orange maize has been used in other places successfully. Was that the question?
It has improved beta-carotene content or other micronutrients too. And she's saying, I'm asking the question because we have QPM.
I'm not exactly sure what QPM is, if they have time to write it in the chat, but the one carotenoid that was the most or the least retained is beta-carotene. And beta-carotene is the one that's one of the best precursors for vitamin A. And it's very sensitive to storage and light. So unfortunately, it was one of the carotenoids that was not well retained, but certainly is present close to harvest. So yeah, that is an issue. As far as further biofortification, I don't think that certainly was not done in the Pro Farmer project. But it's certainly, when we compare it to white maize, 10 steps ahead nutritionally. So, and I'm not sure how much these projects are done in Ethiopia, The data we have is from other countries that work with biofortified corn, maize, and there are plenty of products like that too, not just biofortified sweet potatoes. So again, all these things are being developed and hopefully made available to the countries where that is meaningful, and they can use these different products to help increase or improve nutritional status in the whole population.
Okay, so we have our last question from Adela Chabot. How did you measure the improvement in the deficiency of vitamin A in people? Was it part of the study?
Next time, that's definitely important, but we did not get that far. It's very expensive to do blood tests, and there's in certain parts of the world, especially in areas that are HIV positive, it's very hard to get people to come to a blood draw when you look for vitamin A status. We know that from experience. So definitely that's something that we would like to do, but we didn't, it was not in the scope, certainly not of Alex's 1-year project on the Pro Farmer. It was beyond what we could afford, but it's definitely important, and that would definitely strengthen our case to have determined vitamin A status of different populations and compare those that are eating or growing the white maize, or even areas that don't grow the orange maize to areas that do grow the orange maize, and to see and to prove that this is improving the nutritional status. Because at this stage we see people will eat it and they'll grow it and they like it, but we really don't have definitive proof that vitamin A status is better. And remember that in Malawi, vitamin A is added to the oil and to sugar. So again, expensive, not necessarily sustainable. And so there's a lot of malnutrition, not as much problems with vitamin A today in Malawi. Is that right, Alex? There are other issues. Yeah, iron and even total calories sometimes, protein malnutrition, but they've been able to do a good job of working with vitamin A, but not in what I would consider a sustainable manner. And if you supplement something like sugar, it's like iodizing salt, where you're telling people you want them to eat more salt. It's a problem. It's a good medium to bring iodine and prevent iodine deficiency, but sugar or salt, which is a staple commodity that's used in every home, probably everywhere in the world, might not be the best vectors to bring these important nutrients. So again, they've done a pretty good job in Malawi, and from the pictures and from my experience, I didn't see visible malnutrition. That doesn't mean it's not there. We know it's there. You know, if a child is short, I can't see that from coming in and just looking. But Malawi is working very hard to overcome these things. I think every country in Africa, it's what nutrition is some of their biggest challenges. And that's why it's so exciting to be part of a master's program that gives everyone a push forward in the field of nutrition and doing amazing projects, and if not, while they're at the university, go back home afterwards and do amazing. I mean, one day we should have a talk just about where our alumni are, because in amazing places doing amazing things, very impressive program. And I'd like to always feel that I'm responsible for a little piece of the success of our graduates. So
Aliza, you are responsible for much more than a little piece, and Alex is the living example of this. So thank you for all of you who participated in this very interesting webinar. We had really a look on what the university is trying to do, a better world, a tikkun olam, and we are so proud of you, Aliza, and so proud of you, Alex, and so representative of all the alumni of this program. So thank you, Margaret. Thank you a lot for introducing Aliza, and thank you for all what you have done from Winnipeg with snow today. And thank you to all our attendees. Hope to see you next webinar will be on November 4th. You will all receive the invitation in the next days. Thank you to all. Leitraot.
Thank you, Mara, for organizing. See everybody soon.
Thank you.
Bye.